But as a Japanese person, do you
Yeah.
feel that Japanese people are less interested in sex compared to like Western people?
Uh, it's difficult, mate, because we don't talk about sex much as we would do in Western nations. So I think every human, either Japanese or not, everyone want to have sex. It's in instinct, it's natural, it's biology. But the people feel like, oh, reaching the sex is so difficult, it's too tiresome. Maybe it can discourage the people.
And they have like other interests as well. So
Yeah.
considering the cost of like of pursuing sex, they might think that sex is not very worth the cost.
Yeah, once you become an responsible adult in Japan, like you get many working hours. It depends on your company and industry as well. But in general, working in Japan as a Japanese guy or could be even as a woman, it requires so many work hours. And after work, you may get too tired. As you just want to go sleep.
So the difference I feel like when I talk to Japanese people and, for example, American people is that the society pressures you to have sex. And that kind of thinking is like I feel more in like American society, like more like a
How should I say? How's our expectation on being a man? Like, oh, you are a man. You should be having some sex. Let's go have fun.
so for example, like I remember uh talking to a bunch of like married Japanese men at a drinking place. So we
Oh
were
yeah.
kind of drunk and they talked about like their sex, how
Mhm.
they were not having sex with their
Ah,
wives.
yeah.
The thing about Japan is like they think like we tend to think it's normal, so we don't really try to like encourage other people to like, oh, you need to have sex with your wives and stuff. No.
Not about sex less like. It's more like communication less like in Japan. They are married, they have kids, and they should be communicating even more as a married couple. But there are many stories like you said, or well, after marriage we don't have sex anymore, we don't even communicate anymore. We should more communicate, interact with the people.
So I talk to a lot of Western women who
Yeah,
date Japanese guys or who are married to Japanese guys.
yeah, yeah.
And one of the most common things that they always bring up is that how they stop having sex after a while.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It sounds like very common. It is common actually, yeah, because I do have some friends who were married with some Japanese guys, and they said, once again, they stopped having sex or even communication. Very typical story.
Well, many Western guys also say the same thing. Like, after a while, like their Japanese girlfriends kind of like stop
Yes.
being interested in having sex.
Yeah.
So, do you think you are also the kind, that way? Like, maybe after if you date a girl for a couple of years, maybe, do you think you will stop having sex with her? Or,
So, I mean, as for me, how should I say, my sex drive or sex, I don't know, my lust is not that strong, but I'd like to have sex, like on a regular basis. To me, sex is not for pleasure. It's a way to confirm affection because you feel connected, when you have sex.
and it's normal if you date a girl for many, many years, you kind of like, start losing your interest in having sex is not as intense as when you started dating.
Of course, yeah.
But I would probably still feel like it's I have to have, or in a way, have sex with her to like maintain the relationship and
Hey, totally.
communicate
Hey,
with her.
let's be real. Sex does affect the state of relationships.
But I think in general, like in Japanese culture, I
Yeah.
think people don't really have that kind of like a perspective that they need to have
Uh,
sex,
you're
which I don't think is a bad thing, inherently a bad thing, because both of them think that way. Like, there's nothing wrong with it. But I think
right.
Japanese people are more relaxed in terms of like maybe having sex, so they feel less pressure.
I have a feeling, Japanese people. Once again, I really hate stereotyping, but if I can say my impression, I have a feeling that Japanese people tend to like need more their space, their time. They don't like too much interaction with others, you know. I don't know. I mean, sex shouldn't be, an obligation. Of course, you should have a sex when you want to. My question is, if you love someone, why don't you wanna naturally have a desire to have sex with a person? To me, it's unnatural. My longest relationship was like 3 years, I guess. Even after 3 years, I still wanted to have sex with her. It's natural for me.
I mean, like you can, if you see the divorce rate in Japan, it's much lower, like compared
Mm.
to like some other like Western countries.
Well,
I think the
yeah.
part of the reason is that staying in marriage is more important than having this kind of
Exactly.
like a spark, having passion. That can partly explain why like more Japanese couples seem to be
Yeah.
sexless.
Oh, yeah.
So this is like a frequency of sex by country.
Yeah.
So if you take a look at this, like Japan is at the very bottom. Singapore's like a
That's
birth rate is like a much lower than Japan. But according to this survey, you still have more sex than Japanese people.
Oh my God, that's almost shameful because like in Singapore, as far as I know, even watching a porn is it's banned, right? It's illegal. Even in a country like that, people have more sex than Japanese, you know? Wow.
But according to this survey, like compared to other Asian countries like China, Thailand, like Vietnam, Malaysia, Hong Kong, Indonesia, India, Singapore, like apparently Japanese people have much less sex.
As for those Asian nations, they have a more, incentive or reasons to have sex. Pretty simply, their economy is not that great, so they need, young generations. I mean, for their own families or
Hmm.
for the sake of the nation, while as in Japan, we at least, the people who are already living now, they are quite, content with their life, so they don't feel as obliged as those people do, I guess.
Singapore is, is pretty developed, and Hong Kong is pretty developed as well. And but they're quite busy as well, but they still somehow have sex. So nobody can really explain this. So I think that's part of the reason why people are so curious about sex in Japan. And I feel like having sex is more like a personal choice. I think the real problem is the birth rate, maybe.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And maybe you could argue maybe like, healthy marriage is important, but I
It's
personally
tricky.
don't like telling people whether they should have sex or not. But like I said, like how much they have sex is not very, there's almost no association between the frequency of sex and the birth rate, or like a virginity rate and
Yeah,
birth rate. So what we should be
that,
focused on is that the actual reason why people are not having babies. And you can actually see the surveys, and many people think that oh, we don't have enough money or stuff like that. So this actually the reason is other than they're interested in like a recreational sex. So the focus should be the actual reason why people are not having babies, not why people are not having sex. Because you can
yeah,
have sex like maybe 10 times a
yeah,
year
yeah,
and have children. And you can have sex 1,000 times a year and not have children. So
yeah,
it's not
yeah.
the frequency of sex that matters when it comes to birth
Yeah.
rate. It's actually if they actually want to have children or not. So
That is true. Yeah,
there's a lot of people who have very low sex drive, but they still want to have children. So when they want to have children, they start having sex because that's the most accessible way of like having children. And if they want to have children, they have sex. It's not because they have a high sex drive.
yeah.
Hey guys, it's Yuta again. And as usual, if you want to learn real Japanese that real Japanese people speak, as opposed to anime or textbook Japanese, which is quite artificial, you should click the link, choose your level, and subscribe to my list, Japanese with Yuta. Alright, see you guys soon. Ciao ciao!